Just when we thought.
Julie, has anyone signed?
No, no one has signed up.
Since nobody signed up, I think we'd like to move agenda item 7K, discussion of the MSBA legislative resolutions, up into the open forum session. Matt, do you want to kind of kick that off?
Sure. Prior to the legislative session, the School Board Association solicits ideas from its members and does that in the form of resolutions. And MSBA collects those resolutions, and then a delegate assembly works through those resolutions and makes a determination which ones should move forward in MSBA's platform. And so we've had board members in the past, David Marty most recently, that have served on the delegate assembly, and he's been involved in that. Pat was involved in that previously. We've submitted resolutions. Last year, we submitted a resolution regarding seasonal recreational tax replacement aid. We submitted a resolution about the mascot. And a form of the mascot one obviously ended up getting approved or passed. Not that our resolution did specifically, but it raised discussion, if nothing else. The seasonal tax-based replacement aid one, combined with other boards, moved that one along too, did move through the process. So you may have gotten a solicitation from the School Board Association that these are due in September. The idea, I guess, was a couple things. Have a discussion about anything we might want to think about moving forward particularly, and then it may be useful to have David kind of spearhead a subgroup of the board to kind of work on those, especially since he's been very involved in that process in the past. So yeah, that's the background for that item.
I think David's been involved in that through MREA and
Yep.
MSBA. I think he'd be a really good person. Do we want to talk about some specific ideas now?
I think so.
And maybe anybody that would like to could carry those forward to David, and we can ask David to kind of coordinate that effort a little bit.
Yeah, he's really familiar with the process. He also knows kind of what's come up again and again and again.
Mhm.
Sometimes it takes 10 years just to see it.
I think the seasonal tax-based replacement aid, that's one of those issues I think we have to just keep coming at. Like, I think it was as close as it's ever been this last time. I heard Senator Hauschild talk about it, and I think it eventually became a casualty of the tax kind of committee when they start doing trading at the very end. And so I think he's definitely a supporter, definitely interested in, I think, seeing it again. So I think that would be a good one for us to lean into again.
Yeah, my understanding was one of the reasons it got kicked was because there was no replacement, because we're in a deficit.
Mhm.
And there was no replacement in the taxes in the general fund. So we'll go at it a couple more times, because this year is just a policy year, but the following year will be a budget year, another budget cycle.
I'm a little bit concerned about the committee that is supposed to come up with $250 million worth of cuts, and I think it would be worthwhile for us to do some lobbying. I don't know if that committee can do that.
And that's for special.
Effective for special ed, yeah. I feel like
MRA
that,
should be all over that for sure.
I feel like that's gonna come back onto the general fund
It will.
without, yeah.
It will, because it's legislative at this point. So unless the legislation changes, you're still responsible for doing it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The thing I think that people don't, there's some dots that people don't connect about that particular issue. And the way that the law reads is if they don't come up with 250 million, they're going to take 250 million out of cross subsidy aid. Well, the districts that will be harmed the most are districts that have high percentage of special ed students or have a high cross subsidy. And districts in our area have that. And so it's not a cut that will hit school districts uniformly. So that I do think it, again, if nothing else, just to raise a flag about that problem, that would be good to address that. And maybe it's not, the 250 million is part of the budget now. There's no messing with that, but maybe there's at least some kind of a awareness raised to the consequences of the real consequences of that, or the disproportionate consequences of it, and maybe some alternatives.
So I know I believe we're not part of the National School Board Association. At least we haven't been historically because we had a lot of questions about that during COVID, and we weren't at that time. But there is some lobbying that probably we should be part of or be close to on the federal level. Budgets just are starting to trickle in now, and they're significantly less. And that will also hit, which then goes to local taxpayers, regardless of how people want to look at it. Yep. I don't know who we are at I don't know who that is at the federal level. But we've kind of stayed out of that for good reason. I mean, I'm not even arguing that's not, but maybe MREA has someone that they might be consulting with someone in DC, and we get that as part of our work with them. That's also possible.
I do know they do have an affiliation with the National Rural Ed Association, and the Superintendent's Association works similarly with the National Association, so that both of those venues are good. And I don't know how the school board associations shift from working with, it used to be National School Board Association, and then it shifted. They dropped that affiliation and went to COSBA or whatever it is because of some philosophical differences.
Yeah, Minnesota was one of them that dropped that.
I know one of the things that we talk a lot about, I don't know how you would write a resolution to address it, but the per pupil funding in rural Minnesota is significantly less than in the metros. And, it's supposed to be fair and equitable, and it's not.
No, if I hear one more legislator say it's cheaper to live in rural, I'm going to seriously come up over the table. Because it's not, we just don't have the same competition. That's what people don't understand, right? We have one person that services our Wi-Fi, but it's like, when I tell them what I pay for Wi-Fi, just for Wi-Fi.
And they're traveling.
Yeah.
And they're traveling.
Yes.
So they don't do that for free.
Right.
No.
They don't come up to Big Fork for free. It's in their billing rates and for all those services. So
yeah. So I mean those are I like that. That's a good one to talk about for sure.
I think one of the other inequities that we see in rural is our busing distances are significantly more than the metro. And,
Yeah.
you know, I know that there are some adjustments made to that, but I'm not sure that they are enough.
Yeah. I don't know,
You
because I
know,
thought the funding got cut. Didn't some transportation funding, didn't that get cut? That was just on the block. So they talked about it. It was in conversation.
Hmm.
So that's probably a good one. So it doesn't get back on the table. Because I know that was in serious conversation in the omnibus bill.
To cut funding
For transportation, that's where they were going to make the cuts.
Okay.
Well, you know, and again, it's because at 7 County Metro, like even in their activities, they might bus one way, but their bus doesn't sit there and wait to come back. Like they let parents transport the kids back.
Right.
Well, it's because they're half hour away.
Mhm.
And so it just looks so different.
Mhm. Yeah.
I guess another concern I have is going forward, compensatory aid. I know we got some relief this year, but I do have a long-term concern about that.
Do they have a group looking at that?
Yeah, they're taking applications right now through next Monday for the committee. The Commissioner of Ed appoints, I think it's 10, and then different legislators and other dignitaries have one, you know, they have some selections that they appoint. So they're in the process of finding that committee, but in their turnaround is actually pretty quick from what I remember. I mean, it's like a once a month commitment, but some initial reports are due not far into next spring.
Did we have anybody apply?
We don't yet. Karen and I have been, we're going to arm wrestle for it. We're not sure we're going to make any friends on that committee.
It's okay. You'll be a voice, right? That they often don't hear.
Well, I think unemployment kind of goes into that same piece, right? There's a permanent resolution needed to that problem, and that is a policy issue, really.
Some of that
right?
mandate stuff,
Yeah.
yeah, that came down. Well, and they looked at it this year, but it didn't get very far. But is there any issues with some of the mandates around the librarian or media specialist or anything like that? I mean, I'm just thinking of some of the
Mhm.
mandates that came down and they didn't necessarily add value.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't, and I mean, I don't mean that
Mhm.
media and library is not an added value. I just mean the mandate itself isn't an added value.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well, I know one of the bills that had been proposed was that if a school district was in declining enrollment, the board could waive a set of like mandates within a particular.
With a particular,
Yeah,
kind of a
a
realm,
set
like they
of-
had
Yeah,
us.
right. Yeah.
Is there anything we want to make sure we play defense on? So these are kind of offensive looks. Is there anything like defensively, like we want to make sure we don't lose? You know, transportation, I think being one of those, but is there anything like defensively, like we want to make sure stays intact that we might have heard?
Coming after maybe.
Sometimes that's just as important as, I don't know. I'm just asking.
Will the free school lunches, will that be part of the compensatory discussion, do you think?
I don't know if the program itself will be like directly, but it seems impossible that it's not indirectly.
When does that officially kick in that the districts are responsible for paying for those?
We don't pay for free meals.
No, but wasn't that a part of the mandate though? That Am I mistaken in what that mandate was? The information on that?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
We don't pay for any free meals. I think the issue that gets raised is that program costs the state how many millions and millions and millions of dollars?
Yeah.
And was that the best place to put those millions of dollars in that structure? You know, there were some proposals made this legislative session saying people that make, you know, up to twice or $150,000 and over have to pay for their kids' meals.
Yeah.
So there were some proposals like that, and that would have generated some revenue, you know, or saved the state some money, I guess I should say, that could have helped fund some of these things, but they just didn't get anywhere.
Sad part is a lot of times when we looked at who didn't pay the school lunches, it wasn't the people who you think couldn't afford it.
Mhm.
I mean, our list was typically not that
Mhm.
group of people when we looked at it when I originally started on the school.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like the people, you know. I mean, I found that ironic because I always assumed that the
Yeah.
reverse would be true, and that was not true.
Yeah.
Because at one time we thought about publishing names in the paper, like they do for when people don't
Taxes.
pay their taxes on
Hmm.
land and things like that. We didn't, but it was a discussion, right? Because it was a significant amount of money that hadn't been paid.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it adds up fast.
Yeah, as a parent, we all know, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, I've been as like,
$2 later
ooh,
on nothing but milk.
send a
We'll get
check
you
tomorrow.
at the end of
Yeah.
the school year.
Or send a
It's
check
like, how
tomorrow.
many lunches are you
Yeah.
getting?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and we had lunch. Was that in this policy batch? We have,
well,
or is it the next one?
gonna have to go back.
Yeah.
We ran out of time in the
Yeah, we ran out
policy.
of time, but there were questions, you know, there's pieces in there about collection agencies, and
Yeah.
I've been part of districts that have done that before, and it's effective, but you're only collecting
Yeah.
40% of.
Yeah.
It's typically not. In the end, it's
Yeah.
the cost doesn't,
Yeah, you're not getting a lot of
the
them.
benefit
Yeah.
doesn't outweigh the cost.
It's not exactly a harbinger of goodwill either.
No,
So our concerns would be transportation, special education, compensatory, oh, yes, sorry, compensatory
unemployment.
unemployment. Are we attempting to push again for that resolution, or is that like, that's not really on the radar, but keep bringing it up just to see where it goes kind of a thing? And making sure
Seasonal?
that, yes, the recreational property tax.
Mhm.
Sorry.
I think we should. I
Yeah.
think we should. I think Hochschild will carry it.
Just to put it in the same bucket as these other
Mhm.
concerns, right? I don't know if it's,
It originally came forward last year, you know, during the policy year, so I think it's good to keep that going.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of these take a long time. Hopefully that's not one that takes 10 years, Melissa.
I know. Well, I mean, people are always like, "Oh, that's a surprise. That just
Yeah.
came up," and I'm like, "Actually, it's been
Yeah.
around for
Yeah,
about
yeah.
5-6 years. Like, it's not new.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
You just don't hear about it."
Mm.
You know, anything on curriculum that we need to be concerned about?
there's just floatings of like social and emotional curriculum changes, if you will. If I'm being very blunt, in the elementary level, sexual identity is what a lot of people are in the community are concerned about, is what they're hearing chatter about. But I don't, honestly, if I'm being honest, I don't think that's something that we would have to worry about, because I just don't see that something being passed. You know, but if we ask
That's
to
the
make
concern.
sure, like,
Yeah.
hey, listen, you know,
Yeah.
what is the situation here with this particular curriculum? What's happening? What
Where is it at?
Where is it at? I believe they're on
What's
their second
included in
draft.
it.
Exactly.
So we
Making sure
should
that
just at
have-
least stay abreast of what's included.
Yeah, making sure that we have all of the information about it so that way we can,
You know, the other curriculum piece that is a little concerning is the cost of training required by the READ Act going forward.
Mhm.
And I think we, I think we saw an initial investment, but I mean, that's really a long-term ongoing cost for districts.
Yep.
Because it's an annual thing, right? You have to ramp new teachers up and then there's like an annual kind of sustaining training.
Yeah, we just were in phase one, or are kind of continuing phase one, or rapid phase one. I guess, I don't know, it depends how you look at it. But there's a complete, another phase two that we have to go through, and that's more looking at secondary literacy people and special ed. So, and the service cooperatives are going to play a role in a way that I think is good to help districts with to fill in some of those gaps. But there is an ongoing cost to it. I mean, I think just in general, if the state was going to require us to do
Right.
something, there should be money to pay for it. I think that's the bottom line, whether we're talking about curriculum or unemployment or whatever. The notion that we can just take it out of the funding we already get, that logic just doesn't work.
well, when you're not being fully funded, that's exactly why that logic.
Exactly
doesn't
right.
work.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you were, unless it was a surplus, it
Right.
doesn't work either.
Right.
So in that sense, there could just be that. That's kind of more of a,
Mhm.
if it's worth passing in legislation, it's worth passing in the budget.
Mhm. Some of these, I think there's some language we could borrow. I know that rural versus urban funding, there was a bill, didn't get too far. I think it was from a legislator in Albertville or that area, because St. Michael Albertville is a school district that doesn't have a referendum either.
Oh, and they're landlocked
They're
around some really expensive places. Yeah.
Mhm. So he had moved a bill along to create an aid called disparity aid
Oh,
that would get at that
the
notion.
conversation was started.
Yeah, because they do have some metrics and formulas that they track at the state level, comparing districts that way. They have one that I don't know if they do anything with it anymore, but he compared the district in the 95th percentile for funding and the 5th percentile for funding. I remember seeing that data point as something that they would track. I'm not sure that they do anything with that anymore, but they used to.
Is there any-
I mean,
Oh, sorry.
part of the argument is the structure that the state made going to independent school districts and the formation of the way the schools are built in the state is to provide equity.
Right.
And with the mandates that they're pushing in, and when you look at where the referendums are happening and where they aren't, it doesn't occur in the state right now.
Right.
It's very clear. So they've really got to step back, and we've got to make an argument for that.
Right. Because
And they're
right to your point, when they originally set it up and it was equitable, it was years and years and years ago, and all the movement and where the manufacturing has relocated and the stuff that's gone away, now no longer those tax are equitable.
Our last meeting in Big Fork, I thought we had a very good discussion. I don't know, Mark, how you felt, but we talked about how critical it is that they get all their students in there, right?
Right.
And Big Fork's a good example. They had a small manufacturing place that was there 15 years ago, and with that gone, it's a big difference there, right? And it's happening. That's a story throughout all of rural Minnesota.
Yeah.
And we just got to keep hammering them on it and reminding them.
That our kids aren't worthwhile.
This is not just a vacation destination, right?
Right.
You
People
know,
live here.
I mean,
Right. Right.
it's not going to be the vacation destination if
They can't fund us.
we don't have people worthwhile working at places to come here and do things.
Another one, maybe, any, family leave, sick leave, anything like that. I know they were trying to, there was a whole bunch of movement on that and it didn't really go anywhere, but there's still a lot of conversation happening because the state isn't yet, my understanding is the state is not yet ready to even begin to launch that program. And so there was some just slow down to move fast kind of conversation, like let's slow down, let's really think this through, but I haven't heard anything more. And that's a big deal, especially when you start looking at rural areas where we don't have, you don't have the sub list or the, like you do in other places. And
We're probably kind of coming up on the end of our time here. Do we want to kind of summarize some of those ideas and maybe pass it on to David and
Yep.
anybody that would be interested in working with David? Certainly, I think it's important for us to be active legislatively.
for sure. I bet Dave Cohen would want to. He was really active and he did read some of the he has really a keen sense on that.
He's not here. It's a
He's not
perfect
here,
time
so I
to
can
volunteer.
volunteer him.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you don't
happens when you travel abroad.
show up.
Perfect.
Voluntold.
That's the best.
I think we're going to adjourn the workshop and we'll come back into session with the regular board meeting in a minute or two. Sure.
I didn't intend to wear a hat, but I was grilling outside and it started pouring rain on my head. It rained at my house, but it wasn't raining when I came into town. Yeah.
Really?
It is weird. Yeah. I was flipping chicken on the grill, so that I could eat something before I left, and it was really.
Oh,
On the one that's expiring, you're saying that 2023. Sure. Okay. No, yeah.
We're ready, Julie? Call the school board meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Melissa,
Second.
second by Ashley. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda, approve the minutes of the 6/16/25 regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ashley, second.
Second.
Second by Melissa. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes of 6/16/25 are approved. Next item on the agenda, approve the minutes of the 7/7/25 special meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ashley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Tom. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes of 7/7/25 special meeting are approved. Next item on the agenda, approve the June 25 claims in the amount of $7,580,010.65. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Melissa, second.
Second.
Second by Ashley. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Claims are approved. Next item on the agenda, approve resolution to accept donations and gifts for April, May, and June 2025. The monthly totals are April, $12,411.23. May is $53,123.30, and June, $21,198.81. Do I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Moved by Ashley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Tom. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The donations are accepted. Next item on the agenda, approve the following retirements. Casey.
Good evening, Board. We have Carrie Hopkins, ESP retirement. Carrie served for 11 years. Lisa Myers, ESP retirement. Lisa has also served for 11 years. And Mary Woloch, food and nutrition retirement, 7 years of service. I'm recommending approval.
Do I have a motion to approve those retirements?
So moved.
Moved by Ashley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Melissa. Discussion?
No real discussion except to thank those ESPs as well as our food and nutrition workers. The ESPs on a daily basis are taking care of those children, clothing, feeding, dressing, changing. It is quite the endeavor, as well as the food and nutrition staff who are feeding all of those children day in and day out, as well as cleaning up. So thank you for your service. I just wanted to say that.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Those retirements are approved. Next item on the agenda is a consent agenda. Matters listed in the consent agenda are staffing related and considered routine, do not require discussion. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Melissa,
Second.
second by Ashley. Discussion? Oh, no discussion, I'm sorry. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda, approve the 2025-27 Human Resource Director's contract. Superintendent Gross or Melissa? You want to speak to that?
Sure, I can start. And if there's anything to add, please jump in. Dave Cowan and I met with Casey last week. Was it last week? Last week before he was able to leave on vacation. But Casey, I would recommend the changes to Casey's contract. And she is asking for 0 and 0 for the next 2 years. I want to add that Casey took 0 and 0 in our last contract as well. So this is 4 years of 0 for Casey. And I just want to acknowledge that because I think a lot of people don't understand or remember what that is. But there will be that. There's some legal changes that happened. The addition of Juneteenth to her contract. Sick language around ESST, which was in an MOU. So we'll just move that into the contract. And then HSA language, which is also in an MOU that will move into the contract. And then congratulations to Casey on her is newly married. So we have a name change within the contract as well, which is probably the nicest part about the contract. So if you get an email from Casey, it takes me a little bit to see that new last name. Just a second. Did I miss anything?
I just was figuring out how to finally spell her last name perfectly.
And then she
Took me
changed
5
it.
years. So sorry, but it's easier.
It's easier and yet harder all at the same time.
Yep. Congratulations. Kate.
So for that, I would recommend approval.
Do we have a motion to approve that contract?
So moved.
Moved by Ashley. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Tom. Discussion?
I would have to say I appreciate the fact that thus far our people in leadership positions have demonstrated what they're asking people to do. So it takes a lot. You don't ask people to do one thing and do something different yourself. So I appreciate that.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The Human Resource Director contract is approved. Next item on the agenda, approve a 10-year long term facility maintenance plan. Kara.
Good evening. We do this annually. We approve our long-term facilities maintenance plan. The state, we get so much money per student and then multiplied by a factor of our building age divided by 35. So just little numbers go into this calculation. Our revenue, because our enrollment has been decreasing and because we have we have sold, demolished our older buildings such as Forest Lake, Murphy, the admin building recently, and we added our beautiful new buildings. Our average age has gone down. So our revenue, we don't have as much. And then something else we have done is we have had to borrow against this to put on new roofs. And now that the legislation has changed, we're able to do that without borrowing against our LTFM revenue. This year we collected about $850,000 in our general fund, but we spent about $1.2 million. So luckily we had a fund balance spent down now. So going forward, we have to be very conscious of improvements we need to make throughout the district. So going forward, it's about $800,000 ballpark that we have to spend on projects, improvements, our HVAC, our fire safety, all these things we have to do every single year comes out of this money. So I'm just asking you to approve this plan.
So a motion to approve the plan.
So moved.
Moved by Tom. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Melissa. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The facility maintenance plan is approved. Next item on the agenda, accept the first reading and approve the following policies with statutory reference changes. 416 drug, alcohol, cannabis testing, 613 grad requirements, 620 credit for learning, and 624 online learning options. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ashley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Melissa. Discussion.
I had noticed on our 416 AR, I believe it's our drug, alcohol, and cannabis testing. I believe on page 10, 3.e should read cease instead of case in that bullet point. And I think with that amendment, I have no issue.
Good catch. That's a good catch.
Ashley, would you change your,
Oh, yes.
It's amended.
Amend the motion.
I'm in the
you made,
motion. Yes,
would you amend the motion?
yes.
Okay, and would you,
Absolutely.
Second.
Yep. Second the amended motion.
any other discussion on that?
Good catch.
Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda, accept the first reading and approve the following policies with legislative and non-substantive changes in one reading. Policy 2032, order of the regular school board meeting. 414, mandated reporting of child neglect and physical or sexual abuse. 418, drug-free school, workplace. 425, staff development and mentoring. 514, bullying prohibition policy. 515, protection of privacy and pupil records. 516, administering medicine to students. 516.5, overdose medication. 621, literacy in the READ Act. 707, transportation of public school students. 709, student transportation safety policy. 802, disposition of obsolete equipment and material. Do I have a motion to accept on the first reading those policies?
So moved.
Moved by Melissa. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ashley. Discussion.
I'm going to pull out 516.5 overdose medication because I know there's conversations happening outside. And what I'd like to talk about here a little bit is it's not just about the person that has done the drugs, but sometimes it's a leftover matter if a principal or teacher touches something or a student comes across something and they fentanyl, you might need that overdose medication. So I just want to be clear, like this is not just about the kids who are using, kids or adults using the medications who are receiving an overdose. Sometimes it's just there's powder, there's residue, there's something and it comes through your skin, and that is a fear of many staff and students. And so I want to put that out there for folks so that they understand it's more than just the person who's taking the drug that's at risk here, which is why I think the protection is even more so important. That's all I would say.
That's a good point. Any other discussion on that?
Do we have, this might be a little bit further from what we're trying to discuss, but just the question, because I missed this policy meeting, do we have training on how to appropriately give
Administer that.
administer, thank you for that word,
That was
administer
a
the
question. Yeah, Dan asked that question, right? He asked that question and he asked how many were in each kit, or was it Sean? A couple of people, but there should be 2 in each AED. And then there is a point in time during a staff that they do a training on how to administer. But I think there is this fear of if you don't do it very often, you kind of look at each other like, who's going to do it? And so they were actually going to have more conversations, I think, about that. And I think Dan kind of flagged that, like, we got it. But then when we get there and it's like, who's going to be the one to do it? And we don't want anybody to hesitate.
Exactly.
So
Is there a designated or a couple designated individuals, like depending on the area, location, I should say?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So they're
I think too, one of the things that, especially in these medical type provisions that are more accessible, they're designed to be simple, right? So the AEDs we have in place, when you open those up, in many cases, they speak and give directions. One of the things we discussed in our policy committee, and it's in 516, that the language that they changed in there had to do with EpiPens changing to epinephrine delivery methods because now they're nasal, right? So making it so I don't have to maybe be comfortable giving a shot, but I can do the Nasonex move and be okay with that, right? And so that's similar to Narcan. It's made to not be as complicated, but people being aware so that in that moment there's not any more delay than needs to be is important.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? First readings of those policies accepted is accepted. Next item on the agenda, approve the 2025-26 MREA membership. Superintendent Gross.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our district's been a member of MREA for quite some time. And I think I probably mention this every year, but MREA has put itself in a position to be an impactful voice at the legislature, especially, and that's not all they do, but the lobbying efforts of MREA have gotten more impactful over time. And so even if we look at some of the things that happened this spring, the LTFM bill, the roof bill, I'll refer to in that broad sense, that was really an MREA led item. And it's not a very exciting type of a change, but it's very impactful to school districts, especially in rural Minnesota. So it's a good group for us to be a part of. They also put on a great conference in November and many other things. So I'd recommend approval.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Melissa. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ashley. Discussion?
I've just found MREA to be a much, I don't know if better, but it seems to be more relevant to us as school board members than some of the bigger groups. It seems to connect with us a little bit more on some of the issues. And so I found them to be,
Further reaching.
yeah, then they've been really, they do a lot of work on the Hill. They do a lot.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? MREA membership is approved. Board reports. Tom, let's start with you.
Well, last month we had the steering committee up in Big Fork there, or advisory committee, I guess. That was a very good meeting, I felt. We talked a lot about, how we can leverage some of the benefits of the small school of Big Fork, right? And reach out to people and try to make sure we're engaging the whole community, and we need to keep those numbers up. I mean, it's just so critical when we look at our schools. We just before this meeting, we had our facility meeting and we discussed our projects, the solar project and the RGEMS parking lot project, which they're really wrapping that one up quick. So we had an update on that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ashley?
Well, as you all know, because you voted to allow me to do so, I have been working these past couple of weeks at East Rapids Elementary with the extended school year para program as a special education para, and just thrown right in. You have no time. They just tell you what to do and you do it and you go. And that's why I have such a great respect for the paras that have just recently retired, because as I said before, you essentially are a PCA and you are PCA certified. So that means that you are taking care of humans on such a greater level. There is teaching involved, feeding, clothing, bathing, changing clothing, changing diapers, lifting, and just an overall care and concern for these tiny little humans. And each one of them is phenomenal. And it has been such a joy to work with everybody, parents included, and all of the kids. And granted, it was only 6 days in June, we have 3 days left starting tomorrow through Thursday for July, but it's been such an eye-opening experience to have that, to be able to take part in that. One more thing for me to learn and be grateful for about this district. And so I was able to do that. And I just wanted to also, it's in the same building, East Rapids Elementary, to give a shout out to Lori Grabarkowitz, who has put together and is running the Learning Academy this year. I believe she does it every year, and that is no easy task. She gets all of those students ready, all of the staff ready. The staff are there to help supplement our students and get them through the summer so they don't hit that summer slide, because that is a real thing. My kids will forget everything you taught them up until they get right back into school, into the swing of things. So that is, kudos to those teachers. Thank you very much for taking the time to do that and be with those kids during the summer. And it's a big deal. So thank you very much. But that was all. I wasn't able to participate in the policy meetings, which I missed. I'm bummed about that. Policies, that's my favorite, but here we are. Yep. Thank you.
Melissa?
I was at the policy meeting.
Yes, she was.
And I too like policy. We had a lot of policy.
Thank you
We
both.
didn't even get it.
Thank you both for being on that committee.
I know. Yeah, we didn't even get through all of them. So stay
be there.
tuned for the next one.
I'll be there.
The good news is a lot of it was these were just updates that were made legislatively. So wasn't a ton, but, and contracts, which I don't mind either. And certainly Casey, who we worked with, but we have teacher contracts and other contracts coming up. And I also have contracts in ISD. So there's a lot of just contract work going on right now. And then ISD, we have made an interim hire. Jackie Skelly has moved literally on, and I hope she's doing really well. I haven't had a chance to check in with her, but so we are doing that. And then there's a position posting for that job. And again, we're looking for someone with a special ed license who can also lead an organization. And if we can't find it, we will go back and redraw that position. We may redraw the whole, some of it just to see if we can't get a fit for us. But we're going to hope that we can find another Jackie, fit like Jackie like, I don't know how to say it. Because she herself was so wonderful. But there will be, everybody is replaceable, right? That's the one thing life has taught me. So lots of stuff, lots of work like that, kind of on the ground, contract negotiations. So, which I seem to be one of the only people that get.
Balance.
I attended the Big Fork Advisory with Tom and the committee up there. It was a very good discussion. I also attended the IASC technology meeting. A lot of that discussion was what direction should IASC be looking at going forward with technology? And it's probably a pretty critical question. The other meeting that I attended, we started negotiations with the service employees. So got a good start there. Superintendent's report. Superintendent Gross.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned the service negotiations last week. We have teachers coming up this week, and our ESPs on the calendar as well. So those are all starting to fall into place. It was at the ISD technology meeting we had last week. I was reminiscing a little bit about where we've been as an organization. This is why sometimes when we're kind of slogging and struggling, it's challenging as someone that was very, very involved in the past. Most people don't know that ISD received an international award in 2013. I got to stand in the fanciest place I've ever been with pillars 8 feet across in the Andrew Mellon Hall in Washington, D.C., and accept an award on behalf of IASC for its work in technology and sharing education. It was so, and $1 million in rural utility service grant, federal money, and $800,000 from Blandon Foundation around that same time. So IASC has been in a position to do amazing things in the past for kids and our districts. And so it's, I get called the historian, and probably for good reason. But it's interesting to reflect too, and it's important probably for people to remember. And that's part of what Tuesday was about, just reflecting back on the groundwork that went into putting us in a position where we are now. And it was interesting talking to or listening to Paul, who we've worked with for a long time now, talk about how those decisions we made back then are still paying dividends now, just like the decision that leaders made in 1987 to buy 2 strands of fiber to connect our schools is still paying dividends now. I mean, just foresight. So anyway, the day before that, on Tuesday, we hosted a workshop here to talk about technology, and it was a great day. We had Apple here in the morning, and they just talked about how to use digital tools, ones we already have, how to think about how we're using tools in the classroom. And then we spent some time doing some nuts and bolts work as a school district. And we spent the afternoon on talking about how we're going to handle AI this fall. And I think a lot of districts, including ours, are in a spot where we have, we came through last year with AI being out there and kids using it, but not addressing it really formally. And in the course of that afternoon, and we had some staff from Deer River there too, working with us together. And so we came up with some student guidelines for AI, some staff guidelines for AI, and then also a model, kind of a cognitive framework to think about. And we know that all of those will change because AI is changing every second. But it at least gives us a framework to start from and communicate and be transparent about. So I was grateful for all the people that came in and gave their summer to contribute to that. I attended the Rams meeting. They hosted a dinner with legislators, and a number of them were there. They gave an overview of the session. Things we've talked about quite a bit, actually. They all took time to talk about their peers that they lost and the murders that took place and how that affected the legislative body. And it was somber for sure to think about that. And so I think it was worth, I'm glad they did, because it's a reality of their life and a reality of our situation in Minnesota. We've had some training. I've been fortunate to get to some training, and then we have some training coming up for principals at the beginning of August, which is really right around the corner. Our strategy team, same thing. We have a meeting coming up shortly with them, so we'll be working through that. And the summer is really picking up momentum. This is the time where we've really transitioned from wrapping up last year to full tilt, thinking about the fall. We're in a really good place as far as staffing. I think our last open teaching position closed last night. So I think those interviews will be happening soon. Tom mentioned the RGEMS project. If you haven't been over there, they are weeks ahead of schedule. It's basically done. They have signage to put in. And so Schwartz did a really good job of, working through that. They had rain days built into their schedule, but still to be done where they are is great. So there'll be communication that we need to do on that, because that will represent change, not only for our parents, and I think Tom brought this up in our meeting today, it's going to bring up a change for our community that's gotten in the habit of using, I think it's 8th as a street, because they won't be able to use 8th as a street in the same way that they've used it, trying to cut across from, one part of town to the next. So that'll be a learning for our community. Lastly, I continue to read stories about and hear about large numbers of districts going out this fall for an operating referendum. And I continue to believe that a referendum is necessary to avoid future reductions. I don't believe the conditions are right this fall, and time's running out to really build the momentum we need for the board to make a decision. When we look at timelines, the board would need to make a decision to run a referendum at our next regularly scheduled meeting. So time is really, I think, run out. And I think the failure of that seasonal rec tax-based replacement aid bill was just another thing that would have made this that much more challenging. And so the board's made it clear that our focus needs to be on community engagement. We know that needs to happen regardless of whether a referendum was on the docket or not. We've been making progress in that area, and I believe that's where our focus needs to continue to be, building understanding and advocacy and trust. And at some point, though, we need our community to voice their concern, because we still haven't heard loudly from our community, when are you going to, or how can we make this be different? And I think that has to change at some point. We haven't come out as a school district to say we are running one or we're not, but I just want the board to know that, in the process of not coming and landing in a place, we're essentially making that decision and not, asking for a change. But I just want to be clear publicly kind of where we're at, because I was recently asked about that at one of the sessions that I've been doing. I heard you're running a referendum, and really we're getting to that place where the decision's been made for us. So I just want to be clear that that's kind of where we're at. I did meet with Jeff Daler last week. And after considering different options, again, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that work and reach out to someone like that. I think their experience both in the PR space, the school advocacy space, the communications design and planning space, and referendum space make them a good fit. In addition to that community engagement work part. But he's going to be bringing back a plan of what that could look like in the next 6 to 12 months. I'm going to be looking for that subcommittee to get back together that we had before, unless there's an objection to that, just to get a first look at what he's proposing, and then bring that back to the full board in a workshop coming up. So I just wanted to give you kind of an update and some thoughts on that we're kind of at that point where we needed to have a lot more momentum, I feel like, from our community to provide you the direction you need in order to make a significant decision like that. And so I think that time is sort of come and gone.
Superintendent Gross, I have a question about the parking lot at our gyms. You had mentioned that there will be some communication going out. All jokes aside, but kind of joking, is there going to be a video tutorial?
So Ryan and I, Mr. DeBay and I have talked about that. I think if we could get a drone, that would be amazing. And so that's something we've talked about, because it'll be a shift. And
Yeah.
Tom has agreed to help us with some of the CAD stuff that we may need to make a picture look better.
Okay.
So I'm glad we have someone like that has that.
I know Darren Hofstad Mark had mentioned that Principal Hofstad has a drone.
Oh, okay.
So
that I think is part of the idea, that we would get a drone and kind of map that out for people, because it will be different. It'll be very different. And some people, pictures are good. Some people need to see an experience.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I think video will be important.
Yep. And then just one other mentioning of the community in general giving us their input. I mean, we know the input is that they don't want a referendum because it raises taxes, but beyond that, what is the information that they can give us that can help us make a better decision on what that looks like in the future? And then Tom has also mentioned it a handful of times that it is important to start at a grassroots level. So making sure that the community feels like they're also being involved in those conversations. And even if and I don't know if this is something that would even be possible, but even if there's somehow a space or availability for community members to join in on those subcommittee meetings, if they're interested, or if there's somebody who has experience, you know, in that realm, to come in and give us a perspective of what, you know, the community is looking for. So I think it's still very important, like Tom says, that we keep this community based. We make sure that we do hear what the community is saying, because we know, I mean, and it connects to everything that we've been talking about as far as, you know, job creating here in the community. It's a ripple effect, right? And if you don't have the jobs, then you don't have the people. But if you also don't have the schools, you also don't have the jobs, and then you don't have the people. So, you know, it's just important, I feel like, that we keep our community in the know at all times, not even just full transparency, but crystal clear when it comes to what we're asking, or even not what we're asking, but what we would like them to ask of us. We don't know what that is yet, but we want to make sure that we hear them completely in that regard.
Agreed.
That's all I have, Mr.
How's the
Chair.
solar project going?
We talked a little bit about that today too. They just got the survey results back, and so the next step is to get their geotechnical and ground stuff done and get racking ordered. The estimate that our project manager said was we're about 6 weeks out from construction starting. I'm not as optimistic as him, but that's what he said, 6 weeks.
Are we tied to any of the tax credits?
Not federal ones.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Reminder, upcoming school board committee meeting dates are posted on each agenda. School board meeting agendas can be found on the district website and on the designated posting site at the ISD 318 Ed Services Center. Is there any other business to come before the board? Hearing none. Julie, has anyone put in for public input?
No, they haven't.
Meeting is adjourned.
Ryan DeBay offered to go up on the roof today to take that video.
That's what Martinson did.